Alright, today we're going to learn how a bill becomes a law. Making a bill is not an easy process. You have to go through 10 steps for your bill to become a law. A bill is anyone's idea, any citizen, any person. You could come up with any idea in the world that you want, write it down and give it to your representatives and they'll look it over, and that's just the start of how the bills can become a law. Step 1. The bill is each state has a certain number of representatives, and your representatives are based on your population. So if you have a really big population, you're going to have more representatives. If you have a small population, you're going to have less representatives. There's a total of 435 representatives in our government right now. And an example of who has different amounts, Texas, for example, has 36 representatives, as New Jersey only has 12 representatives. If you have an idea, once again, bring it to your representative and they'll look it over and tell you what to do from there. The next step is your representative will go meet with all the other representatives and they'll talk about the bill, they'll make the revisions that they want on it, and they'll look it over to make sure it's like in its best condition before they send it off more in this process. And once they approve of this bill and they've all come to their senses, they're going to send it to a standing committee. And a standing committee is a committee that meets permanently, full-time, and they're experts in this area. Now, if your bill gets passed on to committee, the committee members that are experts in that area are going to talk about the bill. They'll put their input in it, they'll look it over and do all that stuff as well. Once again, they are permanent committees, which means they meet every single year and they are experts covered in this. Step 4 is check me out. Once the bill and the committee members are an expert on it, they'll debate about it, and once that committee approves of it and is fully aware of what they're sending, they're going to send it to the House. Now it comes to the debate time. Once it's in the House is when they start to get to debate it more and more about this bill. Members decide if they're in favor of it or against it, and an example could be, should citizens get a ticket if they go over 35 miles per hour? The House can debate and talk about why they disagree or why they agree with this law or bill. Next, the representatives one at a time will explain why they do disagree or agree with this bill, and they each have to take time, because if they blurt out and interrupt each other, nothing is going to get accomplished. The reading clerk will read section by section so everyone can understand it, and you are allowed to make revisions on sections, parts, and that stuff so that the bill is fully together and everything is handy dandy. Now it's time to vote. After they made the revisions, they've talked about it, they've done all that stuff, it's time for the House to vote. And as long as majority of the House approves of this bill, it gets passed on to the Senate. Once again, not all of the House has to agree on it, just a majority of them. Each state has 2 senators. No matter how big or how small, each state gets 2. And then once again, a lot of the same steps are repeated that were in the House. They're going to read it out loud, they're going to revise it, they're going to put their input. And once again, once majority of the Senate agrees on the bill, it will get passed on. Not all of them, just majority. After the Senate, it's going to go to the President. The President can either agree with it, and once he agrees with it, it's going to become a law, or he can disagree with it, which means he can veto it. If he vetoes it, the bill goes back a step and it goes back to the House and the Senate. Once the bill, if the President vetoes it, the House and Senate have the final say. They both meet together and they make a vote on it. And if 2/3 of both the House and the Senate agree, the bill is then passed and it becomes a law. It's a very long process, but it is well thought out and it was really helpful to help bills become a law. Now, to recap all the steps that we just went over, we're going to watch the Schoolhouse Rock video. Maybe.
You sure gotta climb a lot of steps to get to this Capitol building here in Washington. Well, I wonder who that sad little scrap of paper is.
All right, and that's our lesson on how a bill becomes a law.